were having a discussion about DFF, that these programs are designed to fail. So talk us through about your acid test, which you put every program through and to make it to have a very high success rate in whatever you do.
So for me, when I try to set up any program, I think we have to think big first. And while we may execute in small chunks, which is always there, but I think the big picture is very important. And one thing I realized, and somebody told me early, that Manish, when you take an approval, whether you take an approval of 2 crores or you take an approval of 50 crores, the same process. And you'll be asked the same questions. You'll have to explain the same logic. So don't go for asking for 2 crores, ask for 50 crores. And another reason happens is when you ask for more money or a higher chunk, the approval process becomes very different. It goes to people pretty high up. And small money goes to people who are not so high up in hierarchy, and they have a very different way of looking at things. So if you have a big proposal, you have a big idea, don't let it die at the level of accountants, and take it up and have this conviction that what you're putting up will generate, let's say, 100 million, and you're asking only for 10 million. I think nobody's going to say no. But don't start by asking 100K or 200K, because you're not doing justice to your dream or to your idea or to your project or what you want to do. Let's say when I was in Europe, I put up a proposal for a program, and believe me, when I calculated everything, I said, oh. So I went to the board and said, we are going to save 700 million euros. So, to save 700 million euros is not a small number. But I had a big conviction that, yes, by doing this, we can do this. And having that conviction is the first step in any acid test. Are you convinced about what you are doing? Because if you're not convinced yourself, and another way to look at it, if you were an entrepreneur, will you do it? If it was your own company, will you do it? And I think, to me, in the acid test, that's the number one rule. And I think 50% answer comes from that. Because intuitively, yes, we got to do this. Now, of course, organizations don't work like that. There has to be a good business case. There has to be good logic. There has to be, everything falling in place. So I ask a few important questions, all the time to myself when I started. That, do you have a sponsor? Do you have a person who is willing to give you the money? And if not, I think I tell you, the project will get stuck somewhere down the line. And have you figured out, the big picture? Means at the end of it, how does it look like to you? Can you dream about it? If not, again, there's a big issue. Do you have a proper team managing it, and a clear program manager, project manager? Which looks like a very simple step, but one may realize that lots of projects don't even have the project manager. And then, of course, a risk framework, a clear monitoring, clear reporting, and things like that. But to me, the first questions, which are important, are the resource allocation question. That is organization willing to allocate resources for this project or program, and why? And what's the value one is seeking? What's the value one is driving? And are we able to communicate the value to get the resource? And once you get the resource, again, in the choice of any project or program, is that once you will develop something, let's say you develop a software, you develop hardware or whatever, eventually it'll land somewhere. It'll land into a factory, or land into a field force, or land into something. And then would people be able to use it? I still remember, once I developed a big system that it was let's say a big application for field service folks. Now the question is, has to be mobile completely. You can't expect a field service person to go in and start entering something on a PC. And I realized that the project was not working earlier before I took over, because everything was based on a PC. Now, you have to rethink completely and think of a service person and say, when a service person, he or she goes to a client to service something, carrying a mobile, right? So the moment you start thinking from that person standpoint, then you make it a success. So I think as long as you tie up both the ends, one from the resource allocation standpoint, which is of the organizational value, and also at the user standpoint, and once you tie both of them up, that's where the aha moment happens, because then you have figured out the entire program end to end. And most of the time we don't do that, because I've not done it for lots of things, because we're happy we got the money, somebody has approved, so let's go. We forget this population is going to be, let's say, I'm not calling the victims, but let's say the users of what we do. And if you think about them and kind of ensure that it's tied up end to end, it's always a success. So I tend to keep both the ends in place anytime I look at any problem to solve. The user community and of course the decision making community, and their goals may not be the same all the time, I can tell you. And that's where we come in. We have to ensure
Right.
that all goals are clearly are managed.